ladies! Today we wanted to talk to you about leading your weekly Delight meeting.
We know that some of you are probably nervous or anxious or just unsure about how do you introduce the story and how do you facilitate discussion.
Is it going to be awkward?
Yeah, it can be awkward, but we have some tips and tricks and suggestions that'll hopefully help you out. Before your weekly Delight meeting, you're going to want to have a Delight leadership team meeting. And this is the time where your leadership team gets to come together each week, talk about the story, share your favorite moments, and also share just how the Lord might be speaking to you through that week's story.
I remember during my time in college as a Delight leader, these were some of my favorite moments. Just getting to spend time with the team, really sharing what was going on in your own life and really digging deeper into this subject was really amazing and really helpful.
Yeah, it's really cool. It kind of becomes like your weekly Bible study time, and you get really close with your team through those meetings.
Yeah.
But make sure you read those stories before you go each week because it just saves time, which is super helpful. Some of you might not know that we have an online leaders resources page. And on that resources page, we have weekly outlines that go along with every Delight story. So you'll want to download those and use those in your Delight leadership meetings.
Yeah, sometimes during your conversation with your team, you can tend to, take some rabbit trails here and there, which is totally fine. But it's going to be really helpful to go through those outlines at the end of your meeting and just make sure that you're staying on topic and that what you're talking about is just parallel with what the story is actually about. Also on those outlines, it also gives you creative ideas of some maybe fun things you might want to incorporate into your Delight meeting, so that might be really fun too.
And usually by the end of these meetings, it becomes pretty clear that there's one or two people that really feel a deep connection with that week's story. Either it relates to their own story or somebody they know, or they just feel super passionate about it. And we suggest that be the person that you choose to kind of lead that week's Delight meeting.
Once that person is picked, whoever's going to lead that week, that person in particular might want to spend some time on their own just preparing for that week. So take a look at the outlines, look at those main points, and also take a look at the points that you made during your leaders meeting and incorporate those things while also having a good feel for the story so that you can sort of summarize the story as well. And then also have some personal experiences prepared to bring into that.
So one thing that we always tell people, and it's just one of the biggest tools and tips that we learned because we royally screwed it up at first, is to spread out. It's really important that the Delight leadership team is spread out all over the room. You're going to want to have the whole leadership team at the front, but that makes it really, really intimidating when there's 8 leaders at the front. You really only need the one person that's summarizing the story at the front of the room, and everybody else can be kind of just spread out throughout the room so that they seem just like anybody else.
So after a couple announcements and a short little welcome thing, you're going to want to jump right into the story. So first and foremost, I would summarize the story. Secondly, bring in some of those main points that you talked about during your leaders meeting. And thirdly, jump right into your personal experience and how you relate with the topic.
When you share your own personal part of the story, you're going to want to make sure that you lead with vulnerability. This is one of the most important parts about being a Delight leader, is being able to share openly, honestly, and transparently about whatever's going on in your own life, your own heart, your own story, and to do that just vulnerably. Whether it's messy or not pretty or not what other people might think or assume about you, you want to share it all, because if you're vulnerable and you're open, then the other people in the room will feel comfortable and welcome to do that as well. And that's what Delight's all about.
Now it's time for discussion, and this is the greater part of your Delight meeting together. You don't want to spend too much time introducing the story, but rather really want to spend a lot of time for the discussion, because that's really where the cool stories come out of and everything else. And so to open up discussion, you can do it 1 to 2 ways. You can use the questions in the back of the book. That's a really simple way to go about it. Or you can use a question that you came prepared with. Or it could even just be a thought that came from what the leader had shared in the beginning. And also, this is really important when you first open up for discussion, that the leaders are prepared to speak up if need be. maybe they just have a response or a thought, so they could just like dive right into that discussion more naturally.
Yeah, but also at the same time, don't be afraid of awkward silence. Sometimes it's easy as leaders to fill in every gap, but sometimes you have to leave that silence so that the other people in the room have the opportunity to speak up as well.
When the discussion is happening in the room, it's going to be really important to physically and verbally like affirm what people are speaking about. So whether that's
Like I just did.
nodding your head or just like responding after they speak. So if they say something, it's going to be really important to just say something back, just a quick little affirming response, because nobody really wants to talk and then there just be like total silence and a blank face.
That can get awkward.
Yeah, so it just helps the conversation happen more naturally if you just affirm and say something, acknowledge what they're saying, and move them forward.
Yeah, and one of the things about Delight meetings is they tend to get super off topic. There are rabbit trails, and that happens. But whoever's leading the meeting should try to be intentional about bringing it back to the main topic, saying like, "Hey, I loved what you had to say, and that kind of reminds me of this." And then bring it back around to what you were originally talking about. And that's just so that people walk away with a main point. They walk away with something to take away, and not just a bunch of random thoughts.
Finally, you're going to want to open and close in prayer. It's going to be really important just to bring the Spirit into the room and into the conversation that's being had. So make sure to do that. It's easy to forget.
And that's it. Hopefully you got some tips and some suggestions, and you feel a little bit more comfortable about leading your Delight meeting. And if you're already leading Delight meetings, hopefully some of these tips inspired you and gave you just some new things to add or implement. Feel free to not use all of these suggestions. We of course want you to lead the way that you feel called to lead, but you can learn from some of our experience and some of our mistakes. But that's all we have for you, and we will talk with you soon.